The Spirit of the Sovereign Lord is on me, because the Lord has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. He has sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim freedom for the captives, and release from darkness for the prisoners, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor, and the day of vengeance of our God, to comfort all who mourn and provide for those who grieve in Zion, to bestow on them a crown of beauty instead of ashes, the oil of joy instead of mourning, and a garment of praise instead of a spirit of despair. They will be called oaks of righteousness, a planting of the Lord for the display of his splendor.
From the New Testament, 1 John chapter 3, verses 1 and 2. See what great love the Father has lavished on us, that we should be called children of God. And that is what we are. The reason the world does not know us is that it did not know him. Dear friends, now we are children of God, and what we will be has not yet been made known. But we know that when Christ appears, we shall be like him, for we shall see him as he is. Please join me in reading the 23rd Psalm. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in the green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever.
Please stand for the reading of the Gospel. From the book of John, chapter 10, verses 11 through 16. And Jesus said, I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for his sheep. The hired hand is not the shepherd and does not own the sheep. So when he sees the wolf coming, he abandons the sheep and runs away. Then the wolf attacks the flock and scatters it. The man runs away because he's a hired hand and cares nothing for the sheep. I am the good shepherd. I know my sheep, and my sheep know me, just as the Father knows me, and I know the Father. And I lay down my life for the sheep. I have other sheep that are not in this sheep pen. I must bring them also. They too will listen to my voice, and there shall be one flock and one shepherd. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord.
Please be seated. At this time, we'd like to take a few minutes to share some of our memories of Dewie, to try to find the words to describe what a very special woman she was. The words won't be enough, but we're going to try. I would like to begin by addressing Pete, Sarah, and the family. During the 12 or more years I've known Dewie, I have come to know you through her stories. Dewie loved each of you so very much. And I believe her only one regret, if she had one during her final hours, it would be leaving each of you. Ben and Obi, Dewie talked of you with such affection. I knew her for 3 years before I learned you weren't her biological children. She spoke of you like you were her sons. Ben, she so respected the love and care you gave for Lisa. She spoke of your devotion and commitment with such admiration. Obi, Dewey's face would light up as she talked about you and your family. I remember clearly how excited she was to learn she was going to be a grandmother. And she rarely missed our weekly meetings unless she had a chance to babysit. Sarah, your mother loved you so. I don't have a single memory of her talking about you with anything but enjoyment. and a strong sense of support for you and your path, even when it involved working on a cruise ship. Over the last few days, as I've looked at pictures of the two of you, I am taken by how much you look like the young Dewie. And the pictures with the two of you show a beautiful love and connection I hope you always feel. Helen and Mabel, you've become part of this family the past 9 years through your care of Dewie. During most of that time, Dewie couldn't relay stories to me about her relationship with each of you, but I clearly saw the gentle, strong, conscientious care you gave her. I saw her eyes twinkle as she talked with you, Mabel, through the letterboard, and I watched the two of you share laughs and smiles and private jokes as you worked to understand her spelled out messages. Helen, your devotion to Dewie was there to her last moments on this earth, and I thank you for that. You both brought love and life to Dewie by sharing your children with her. I will always cherish the memory of Ruby communicating with Dewie with her letterboard. What a gift and compliment it was for Dewie, for Ruby to want to connect and to learn how to use the board. And Joshua's grown up with Miss Dewie, bringing stories and life to the house each day after school. You were all family to Dewie, and your care helped make her years with ALS more joy-filled. And of course there is you, Pete, Dewey's prince. I remember early on hearing Dewie talk, and not with a lot of gratitude or appreciation, of the hours and hours you would spend polishing every single raindrop or speck of dust off your airplane. Your absolute devotion and determination were befuddling and at times aggravating to Dewie as she sat in the hangar waiting. I too felt a bit anxious and confused by your long-lasting focus on details after Dewie was diagnosed with ALS. Dewie told us you were going to build a house just for her. As months and months and months passed, I thought, are they ever going to get to move into this house? But the day you took me out to see it for the first time, and you walked me through each carefully thought out inch of that house, I understood. This was your claim. This was your gift of love. And each detail was important to you because you wanted it just right for Dewie. And it was. This absolute devotion and focus on detail is what kept Dewie alive and happy these past 9 years she lived with ALS. You learned the procedures and the tiny details of Dewey's medical needs so that she could be comfortable and happy. How safe, loved, protected, and cared for Dewie had to feel right until the last moments here on earth. You were her friend. You will always be her friend. Dear family, I know today that these days and the days to come are hard ones, but I hope knowing how very much each of you was loved and cherished by Dewie will make these days a tiny bit easier. Each of you loved her very well.
Hi everyone. Thank you for coming to celebrate Dewie. I know you all feel as I do that it was an honor to be loved by her and to love her. Dewie and I met when we were 15 years old. She lived on 15th Street in Santa Monica and I lived on 16th Street. We didn't know each other, but we took the public bus to high school every morning, and she would get on the stop below me, and then it was my turn. So we didn't connect. But one afternoon, on the way home, the seat was empty next to her, and I had always noticed her because she was so exotic. She first of all, she looked Mexican. She had wonderful pierced ears and earrings, and nobody at that time had pierced ears, except Mexican children. And I had been in Europe for about 6 months in school, and I was feeling shell-shocked having come home. And here was this wonderful exotic creature, and I was very interested. So anyway, in that afternoon, I sat down next to her, and I noticed she had a signet ring on her hand. And I said, "That's beautiful." And she enthusiastically took it off and said, look what it can do. And she took the signet and it flipped over. And on one side, it would be abalone. And on the other side, it would be onyx. And anyway, from then on, we were best of friends. I was a pedal. Now, a pedal, that came from Dewie. We always signed our letters with a oval-shaped smiley face with very big eyes. And Dewie was going to say, "That's a people," but she misspoke and said, "That's a pedal." And from then on, we were Beatles. And this was a very common occurrence with Dewie. She had a way with words and a way not with words. And some of my favorite stories involve what she would do. She was raised in Mexico, and so she had perfect Spanish, and she had remembrances and inklings of English words that were used to be more nuanced than the daily living kinds of words. And she would know that they were right and wanted to use them to express what she was feeling, but she wasn't quite sure what they were. So I'll give you a couple of examples. We had gone to the movies with my mother and my mother and a friend of hers, and they were in the front seat of the car, and Dewie and I were in the back seat, and we had this moving experience at the movies, and we were talking about the various scenes and so forth, and pattering away the way we always did, and so we were kind of reliving every scene, and Dewie said, "Oh, I know it was really great, but it was so, oh, gosh, what's that word? You know, it sounds like balonkalunky." So I was descended into laughter and realized that what she was saying, "Oh, you mean melancholy." So she said yes, and of course, then we, at 16, right, we would laugh and laugh about that, and then we would laugh at laughing, and finally my mother says from the front seat, "That's enough, girls." And then, of course, that would send us into more giggles, etc. And then another one that I remember is our house on 16th Street had a small kitchen, and Dewie and I were pretty good about doing the dishes and so forth after dinner and things like that. But moving around, often you ran into each other because it was small, and so we were doing our jobs and so forth, and she got irritated and she said, "Stop it, you're clustrating me." Always when we would have these experiences, she knew because the person I went into hysteric, she knew she had made an error, and I considered these kind of magic words, and she would laugh, and then we'd figure out, I'd tell her what she's saying, clustered, frustrated, and flustered, right, all at the same time. So, and I've talked to Sarah since then, and Sarah told me that she would have some of those experiences, especially there might be some kind of serious thing they're talking about, and then it would come out, some word like that, and then they would just drag out so they know. I have a letter that when Pete called to say that Dewie had died, of course, that was a big shock. And so I wrote her letter, which I'd like to read. When we were together day after day in high school, and even later when we managed to spend chunks of time together as our lives played out near each other and far away, I always thought that maybe it was better to be who you were than who I was. The special things that made you were so enchanting to me and were so comfortable too and appreciated by others that I thought that anyone would choose you over me to love.
My determination and conviction and drive were never so easy to be with as your acceptance and positivity and flow. I.e., Pete, I understand that rubbing the airplane. I loved you so much, and all that you were completed me. Do you remember that we always said we would have to find a mate that was like the other one? I think that we did. All the things that made a lifelong friendship are the same things that make a lifelong marriage. There was never any doubt that you were my best friend, no matter who came into my life to love. Whatever the hard things we had to tackle between us, there was never a doubt that it was worth the tears and the talking to share where we were inside. That above all, we would do it. We would do it because we were always best friends for each other at any moment, and it wasn't even a thought not to be. And even when there were years between seeing each other, being together again was to have time disappear and age to be gone, and to have, as always, the familiar joy of the moment in being who we were together. There was never so much silliness and laughter as we created, never so much song. The present was brilliant and filled with color and meaning, and enough unto itself. You were the person that put me in the moment of now, as fully present and filled with the beat of life as when rafting a river, flowing along with the water, listening, watching, the shore with birds, never being anywhere but there, my mind at rest. This is the way we played and sang and rested together. I am at the other end of life now from when we started out. You have left on a new adventure without me, as we have had to do before in this bodily life. Time hardly means anything anymore, and it won't be too long before I follow you. I hope that there is more beyond this that includes you and is recognizable as you, for I long to be with you again. I must forgive myself for not writing often as I always intended, or calling when I didn't write. That is partly because time is so deceptive and puzzling now, and it is partly because it was painful to not be able to hear you. That is my feeling. I was thinking of myself and protecting myself against that pain. Of anyone I know, you would understand and forgive me, but I'm the loser. I have always been a terrible letter writing, as you know, but talking with you is easy and so happy making. I wanted you to know that Owen and Ashley are expecting twin boys, so I will get to be a grandmother like you. And I wanted you to know that I was in the hospital with a deep vein thrombosis and was lucky it didn't go to my head or stop my heart. And we are still getting out from under financial troubles and trying to see where we go from here for the last chapter of life. You going makes it ever so clear that a person better take steps to try and create a particular scenario of life for the end. And I wanted to tell you that we have a new doggie named Maddie who weighs 36 pounds and looks like a sheepdog and a pointer at the same time. She's sweet, and we're trying to teach her good manners like not jumping up and not trying to shake hands with you and scratching instead. If those things can be curbed, she would be a great therapy dog. So those are the big things I came to let you know. And I am sad for myself that I didn't tell you. But I am so grateful that you had a date night with Pete for dinner and the movies before you left. And I'm so thankful that you stuck around until life said, enough now. And you were the joyous witness until then. Dearest beloved Pete, old friend, I love you, and I always will.
her love for people. She always enjoyed having people around her. Mr. Pete was a caring husband and made sure she had a good life. To this day, he has been the best husband I ever met. He will make sure she always happy. He will take her to get her nails done, her hair. We always go out to restaurants, to the movies, even to my daughter's school. We like to go to shopping a lot. She called me loca, means crazy. And then she spelled it. Te amo means I love you. Loca because I always make her smile. My family and we're gonna miss her so much. I was so honored to work with her. And we love you, Mr. Pete. I met Miss Dewie in January 2009. I was working for her for almost 8 years. My son has almost 2 years when I started. We have too many memories. Funny is happy, sad, scary also. As Helen said, she always smiling. She gave up. I think she was a really good patient because she trusts in us. She knows that she always been patient with everything. She just smiling all the time. I remember we had when they living on the hotel, 2 times the fire alarm went on. And she just looked at me, Mr. P, start working. So she wasn't here, she went to Japan, I think. And she just looked at me and said, it looks like she's telling me, well, take me out of here. That is the problem. I'm the patient. And she just laughing on me, smiling all the time. I don't have to do that because the fire came and everything was okay. Another memory is it was I think tornado or something coming from Texas. And Sarah was with us at the house and we went to the closet. Sarah, Miss Dewie, Joshua and I. And she just laughing. Like always. She just smiling. And I think that's the way she said, everything's going to be okay. I'm fine. I'm scared. We take a trip with Mr. Pete for 1 month. We lived together for 1 month. Hotel by hotel. Restaurant by restaurant. And she always happy. She always been happy. And I think everybody knows her for her smile. She always smiles. And I want to remember her that way. I think the last day I saw her was on Ruby's 15th birthday. And she was so happy. Smiling all the time. Looking at everybody. Dancing. And my friends, even though they know she's going to die. And they say she was so happy that day. I never had the opportunity to meet Miss Dewie before any of this. When I start working for her, she spoke just a little bit and slowly it was a little hard to understand what she said. But I remember one day, after the shower on the bathroom, she told me, "You are my angel." And I remember one day, I saw her. No, you and Mr. Peter are my angel in my life, and Joshua is my angel. And we love her a lot, and I know she knows that. And one thing, funny thing is, she wasn't good at spelling words. As you see, the English is not my first language, it's my second language, so it wasn't, sometimes it was hard to understand what she said. And I knew she spoke in Spanish before. They say, okay, do it in Spanish. And it was the same thing. So. And I remember one day I told Mr. Pete, I think Miss Dewie has to go back to school to get how to spell the words, and she just smiling. We have too many accidents, like she pooped on my feet sometimes, or she make marks from the bathroom to the bedroom. And she just smiled all the time. She just smiled. And Mr. Pete, Helen said you were the best husband she had. And we are gonna miss her a lot, my family. I'm so happy we spent one Thanksgiving together. We, sometimes when Mr. Pete wasn't here, maybe he went somewhere or to the ranch, we make hamburgers outside, and she just watching us and smiling all the time. She loves, I know she loves Joshua. We grew up with her. And I remember the funny thing of Joshua was one day, I picked her up from the bed, and Joshua asked me, "Mommy, why Miss Dewey photo is behind?" What is, she asked me why her photo is white. Because we are brown. And I said, because she is another color. And she just laughing a lot. And she just repeat that word, photo, all the time. She knows what photo means. And she understands a lot of Spanish also because Josh, right? And she was kind of really nice woman, and I think if she have the time to tell everybody something before she passed away, is don't forget Mr. Pete. So Sarah, Ben, Obi, the whole family, visit him, talk to him, because he will need everybody now. And you have us, Mr. P, you have my family. And we love you
The purpose of me being up here was to translate, but apparently there was a change of plans there. Well, my family, as you heard, has known Mrs. Dewie since Mabel started working with them, and Helen and I also took care of Miss Claire before she passed. It's very sad for us to know that she's gone now. But yeah, the last time we saw her on my niece's 15th birthday, it was a big celebration. She was all sparkly and smiles, and she seemed so happy. And I just recently found out that she had a celebration like that in Mexico. She had it, so I'm sure that for her it was very many good memories, and it must have brought her back in time and relived those moments that were so full of happiness for her. And I'm glad that her and Mr. Pete and their entire family have been able to be a part of our lives and have allowed us, the rest of us, to be a part of theirs. We will always cherish her and Mr. Pete and hold her very near to our hearts. The time that we spent Thanksgiving, I had just had my little baby boy, and I was so worried of going because I have 3 kids, and my oldest is not a problem, but my 2 little ones are a handful. And so I'm always concerned, oh, they're gonna break something, oh, they're gonna yell, oh, they're gonna do this. And Mr. P, the minute we walk in the door, you can see Miss Dewey on the side. She's looking towards the door and she's just smiling and her eyes are just full of joy. And Mr. Pete is like, oh, I know Dewey is so happy that you guys are all here. And every time we would take, that I would be able to go over there and visit, and I'd take the kids with me, whether it was the baby or the oldest ones, she was always smiling, and I could see her trying to follow them with her eyes, and I could see the joy that they brought to her, and that made me very happy. I didn't do it as often I would have liked because it's just hard with kids and everything, but I'm glad that the few times that we did see each other and that my kids were able to bring a little bit of joy to her house, to fill her house with such loud voices. And I know she was happy. I could see, I mean, I've seen it through them. I kept thinking, it's so hard to talk to her through the board. I mean, I would try to tell them to sort of teach me, especially Mabel, and I couldn't get it. I could not get it, and especially when she would tell me, Ed, she's not a good speller. I'm like, oh my God, okay, don't forget it. I definitely won't get this. So it was a difficult job, but I know they loved it, and they loved her very much. And as Mabel said, you know, our family is here for you, and we will keep coming around. I will keep bringing my loud kids around so you can see them and they can see you, and they send all their love. They've been asking about you the whole week. They've been asking about Mrs. Dewie and what happened and how she's doing now, and you know, they send all their love to all of you.
It is not easy to know what to say. I hear Mother's Memorial. I've been trying all week to try and put words together to explain how I feel about her and the connection that we had with each other. But there aren't perfect words for that. There are only emotions, because my mother is a part of me. She is my guts and my strength and my compassion and my sympathy and my loyalty and my joy. She is my love. And so she will live on in me. And so you will see Dewie again when I smile. And you will see her in my eyes when I look at loved ones. And you will hear her in my voice when I cry. And for that, I feel so lucky. My mother taught me how to enjoy my life. It wasn't a lesson she sat me down for, but I watched her through her actions throughout her life. And if there's one thing that we can take away from my mother's life, if there's one thing that we can learn, it's that she was happy because she chose to be happy. And we all have that ability. And that's awesome. And my mom helped me to see that gift in life. And it was the greatest lesson of my life. I think a lot of us will think about Dewie in her wheelchair with a smile and a stuffed animal or six on her lap, because that's how we knew her. But when I think about my mother, I will see her walking and talking and laughing. And I think that she's at peace now because she's not restrained from any of that anymore. I know I will miss my mom for the rest of my life, but I know I'll be okay. the hug. It means a lot.
Isn't this a pretty place? We have Kathy to thank for that. I didn't know about this place until she told us about the venue and that we could have a ceremony here. And also for helping so much to put this all together. Kathy's been just a rock for us. So thank you. I have something else that's not in the program I have to do. Dewie has a sister who lives in Alaska, Forrest, and Forrest couldn't make it, so she said something. I'm going to read Forrest's remembrance before I start mine. It says, "My only sister." A lot of you have known my sister Dewie much longer and closer than I have, but like all of us, she made a huge impression. I see her as a giant of love. We reconnected a few months before she was diagnosed with that awful disease. There was a long separation in their lives from high school years until just before we got diagnosed with ALS. That's what she means by reconnected. And because of the distance between us, we probably only saw each other less than 20 times, but I'm so very glad to have had that. What a lady who knew how to bless us. Some of that done with only a smile, a twinkle in her eyes. I never was good at reading her eyes with the letterboard, but I was there when she was recovering in the hospital from having her tracheostomy. She had just lost the ability to talk. My shift was in the wee hours of the night when she let me know she wanted to tell me something with the board. I was feeling low about her loss and figured she wanted to share that hard time with me. So I wasn't really getting the message right. We were having trouble. But she was so patient with me, and we struggled for some time. Finally, I got it. And I yelled at her, "You want me to pick up your left butt cheek?" Dewie got right to the point in conversation. It was precious, the few words that she could get out. To heck with the mental stuff. The physical stuff is what I'm dealing with now, and she needed an adjustment. We laughed so hard, and she couldn't even participate. But she did participate. You knew it, and in those wee hours, the room was full of love. She made that happen. No time to feel sad. I hope others tell of her wit, her frankness. It was priceless. There was no doubt in my mind when she entered heaven, God said, "Well done, good and faithful servant." I'm so proud to have you for my sister. Oh, how I'll miss my sister, love, for us. And there's one other thing. I made a terrible mistake. When I wrote the obituary, originally I left Forrest out. She called me. We got it fixed on the website. She's not listed here. So when you get home, take this and write Forrest. We have to correct it. Thank you. There's a passage in one of Paul's letters in the New Testament where he talks about that each of us is given an assignment by God before we're born. How many here remember that happened? I don't either. have it, it's hard to know what it is. Let's look back at Dewey's life. You can tell what it was. People used to ask me, what does your wife do? I'd say she's a dental assistant. No, she was a teacher. People talk about her smile, the twinkle in her eyes. People are telling me how she made them feel. She had a way of making you feel loved, even if you had only met her for a minute. And that was a unique ability. Believe me, when I first met her, that's what I felt. I had, if I had not wanted to fall, I had no chance. When I first met Dewey, that was it for me. The night before Dewey died, we went out. We went out to dinner. We went to a movie. Well, we went to a movie. After the movie, I asked her, did you like the movie? Now, she couldn't answer really well anymore, but we tried. And her answer was no, I didn't like the movie. I said, was it boring? She said, yeah. I said, okay, well, let's go to dinner. Let's see if we can do better at dinner. And we did. We went and sat outside on the sidewalk. It was a nice evening. And Dewey sat where she could see the people walking up and down the sidewalk. And she did what she loved to do in that wheelchair. She would catch their eye and smile at it. I saw her doing it. There was a couple at the table behind us. They were having an argument, and she was listening. She liked to do. She was eavesdropping. It was a great evening. And I told her that night, I said, sweetie, I cannot get out of my mind the thoughts, the feelings of when I first met you. So I'm going to tell a story about when we first met. You might know the story that we met in Berkeley, California. I was just turned 23 and she had just turned 30. We didn't meet on Match.com and we weren't looking for a mate. We met because Dewey put a card on the bulletin board at the grocery store, and she said, I'm looking for a music partner to sing and play guitar with. I played guitar and tried my hand at singing in high school. And there's a reason why I didn't become a rock star. But I wanted to try my hand at music with someone, and I answered the note. And so we made a date to meet at her house on a Saturday, and we brought our guitars and we would sing and play. And I wanted to know where this house was. So Ben was 4 years old and Obi was 2, and they were in the car with me. And we drove down 10th Avenue in Berkeley and saw the house, and there was a beautiful young lady standing in front of the house. I said, do you know Dewey who lives here? She said, that's me. And that was it. It took a while for us to actually have a date, because that's what we did. We played music together. To hear her voice, well, you're going to hear it in a little while, but it was beautiful. I was a mess in those days. I seemed, looking at the pictures, I seemed to have misplaced both my comb and my razor. And I had lost my job. I didn't have a job. I was living in a cheap room in a rooming house. I had a young family that recently separated. And my folks were worried about me all the way out in California. And I started calling home and writing home about somebody named Dewie. And it worried them. What is a Dewie? They said. Got the best of my dad, and he got on an airplane and he came out to see me. And Dewie and my dad and I, we went out up actually on Mount Tamalpais, if you know the Bay Area. It's a mountain that looks out over the bay. And was a park up there. We went and sat and talked. And my dad finally got around to his question, and he looked at her and he said, "You've got a lot going for you. You're personable. You're a beautiful woman, and Pete over here, he doesn't have a job. He doesn't have an education. He's got 2 young boys recently. What do you see in him?" Pretty direct question, but that was my dad. But Dewey's even more direct. You don't ask her a question if you don't want to know what her answer is. Her answer blew me away, and my dad as well, I'm sure. All she said was, "I don't know. All I can tell you is I'm in love with him." That was the first time I heard her say that about him. And the quality of Dewey's love, and all of you have experienced it, it's the most undemanding love that I've ever experienced. I didn't do anything to earn that love from Dewey. Just somehow she made me feel it. And all of you who have spent any time with her have felt that at one, to a certain degree. So I say that Dewey was a teacher, and she didn't teach math or English. She taught love. She taught us how to love. And I'm going to tell you the lesson that I think that I've learned from living in Dewey all these years. If you wanted love the way Dewey loved, when you're with people, try to make them feel the way Dewey made you feel. That's her lesson. And I agree with her sister. God said, "Well done, faithful servant." She wouldn't have known that. She wouldn't have told her she was a teacher. It wasn't. You have to look back and see what she accomplished, and that's what she accomplished. All of us are better for it. And I'm forever changed. I started changing the moment I met her. And I guess she's done with me now. And graduated. I have to say that if she was a teacher, I was probably the most difficult.
The Lord be with you. Let us pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. She's giggling.
That was to let us know we didn't have any trespasses.
Yeah, unbreakable. There we go. She timed it as we were led into temptation. So here we go. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever and ever. Amen. The Lord be with you. Let us pray. Into thy hands, O Lord, we commend thy servant Dewie, our dear sister, as into the hands of a faithful Creator and most merciful Savior, beseeching thee that she may be precious in thy sight. Wash her, we pray thee, in the blood of that immaculate Lamb that was slain to take away the sins of the world, that whatsoever defilement she may have contracted in the midst of this earthly life be purged and done away. She may be presented purely and without spot before thee. Through the merits of Jesus Christ, thine only Son, our Lord. Amen. Alleluia, Christ is risen. Let us go forth in the name of Christ.
Si por pobre me desprecio, yo te concedo razón, yo te concedo razón. Si por pobre yo no te ofrezco riqueza, te ofrezco mi corazón, te ofrezco mi corazón. Saderosa, eres linda y hechicera, eres linda y hechicera, como el candor de una rosa, como el candor de una rosa.
Pete and Sarah would like to thank each of you for being here today to remember and honor Dewie. Your presence here is a testament to Dewey's love and the ability to touch lives in beautiful ways. Inside your program is a card and an envelope. I invite you to write down a memory, story, or reflection about Dewie, and either drop the card in the basket in the reception area or drop it in the mail. Receiving stories over the next few weeks or months will be a real gift for Pete and Sarah. You're now invited to join the family for reception inside. When you get there, please sign the guest book, and we very much thank you for coming.